No worries. Well, welcome everyone to uh, today's session of Entre Colegas. Thank you for joining us. My name is Eric Senior. I'm the Training and Technical Assistance Manager for the Hispanic Latino Behavioral Health Center of Excellence. And we're also very grateful to be joined today by our speaker, Dr. Michelle Evans, who will facilitate this dialogue on fostering psychological safety, the role of culture in creative support and environments. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So today's session has simultaneous translation to Spanish if you wish to use this resource. To do so, please click the interpretation tab and then click Spanish. I want to make sure, can everyone hear me? Oh, okay.
I can hear you.
Great, awesome. Okay, so if you can go to the interpretation tab if you wish to listen to today's presentation in Spanish, you can click there and then click Spanish. Eso es para nuestros hispanohablantes que deseen escuchar la presentación hoy en español. Pueden presionar la pestaña de interpretación, el icono de Zoom que dice interpretación, y luego presionar español. Next slide. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Today's webinar is being recorded. Please make sure your computer speakers are turned on and up to hear today's presentation. And please make sure to maintain your microphone muted as myself or Dr. Michelle Evans are presenting, but later on we'll be able to open up mics and cameras so everyone can join in the dialogue. If you are having any technical issues, please send a message to the Hispanic and Latino Behavioral Health Center of Excellence on the chat box. That could be either to me or our co-host, Paola Diaz, and we'll be make sure to help out. And at the end of this session today, we'll kindly ask you to please complete an evaluation. So we'll share a link to the evaluation through the chat. You can also scan a QR code that will present at the end of the session so you can complete it. And this evaluation is super important for us because it gives us feedback as to how you felt the session went and what kind of other trainings and technical assistance and supports you'd like to see come through the center and support you. So the mission of our Hispanic and Latino Behavioral Health Center of Excellence is to advance and support the sustainability of behavioral health equity by promoting community-driven, culturally grounded, and person-centered prevention, intervention, multiple pathways of recovery, and recovery supports for diverse Hispanic and Latino communities. The Hispanic and Latino Behavioral Health Center of Excellence recognizes the complexities associated with gender and ethnic identification, as well as the right of individuals to self-identify. The center uses the term Latine with the intention of both facilitating a fluid reading and pronunciation and supporting an inclusive and respectful language. Latine is a gender-neutral form of the word Latino that uses the letter E at the end, an idea native to Spanish language. And so I'd like to note that for this dialogue and discussion session, this is a safe space where everyone to share their ideas and experiences, and we encourage an open and honest communication. Please also be mindful and respectful of others' approaches and experiences. We all come from different backgrounds and have unique perspectives. And as part of this dialogue session, feel free to consult on clinical challenges and share your clinical achievements. This is a collaborative environment and where we can all learn from each other. And regarding confidentiality, please be cautious not to share confidential information or identify information about participants, clients, or patients. Privacy is paramount for us in this setting. Now I will hand it off to Dr. Michelle Evans.
All right. Well, good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here. And in taking a quick look through participants, I am so glad to see, and I'll make some assumptions here, just many of us are from the community and working with the community. And that certainly is going to bring a lot of richness to our discussion today. But I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and currently I am the Chief Executive Officer at Elgin Mental Health Center, which is the largest psychiatric facility in the state of Illinois. But I'm also a therapist working with individuals primarily with sexual addictions who have sexual offensive behavior. And I've been there for a number of years. In addition, I've worked with in child welfare and a lot of just mental health, psychiatric hospitals and things like that. Working with this population, my grandparents and my father are from Mexico, and they are immigrants as well. And so working with the Hispanic Latino population is a passion of mine. I've worked for a long time with the Center of Excellence here, just in advocating and making sure that we are strengthened to be able to give this population the best services that they deserve. And so I'm very passionate about it, and especially the topic we're talking about today. So long we have talked about cultural competence and then cultural humility. But I'm really excited to talk today about the concept of psychological safety, which really is that next step of how do we all feel that we belong. And so I'm really looking forward to just our discussion today. But before we start, we have a couple of poll questions just to learn a little bit about you. Eric, do we want to pull up poll number one?
Yes, we'll do right now.
All
Okay.
right, so if you wouldn't mind responding to our first question here, this will help us get to know you a little bit. Today's webinar is going to be a little bit different because it is a dialogue. And so I assume many of you are probably eating your lunch, taking a break in some way if you're in the middle of your workday. So your screens may be off, but I do encourage you to make sure you use the hand raise button or the chat, and also just audibly discuss. And I'm going to be asking a lot about your experiences. If you haven't attended one of these before, we have about 10-15 minutes. I'm going to talk about a few things, and then we're going to have a good dialogue in terms of how we're actually applying these concepts to our own workplaces. Hopefully we can share and we can learn from each other. And, because that's really where we learn the great ideas and where we hear great ideas. So I'm super excited to be here today because I know I'm going to learn a lot. So, all right. And thank you so much for those of you that are filling out our poll question today. I'm very interested, and this is a core question of what motivated you to attend this dialogue. So you chose to spend your valuable time with us today on this discussion of culture and psychological safety. What brought you to that decision that this was going to be important today? And this will help guide our discussion. So if you could, please answer that poll. We'll give you another minute or so. And as we're talking, I do watch the webinar chat as well. And so that is open for us. Just make sure you're responding to everybody. So if you have questions for my individuals who hate talking in front of people, my more introverted people, you can use the chat. I usually read it out if nothing else, but we always do love hearing your voice as well. So,
Okay. So I'm going to share the poll now and some of the answers.
all right.
For those of you who maybe didn't have the chance to answer it at one time, feel free to share them through the chat as well. So I'll I'm sharing just the results, saying how many people answered, but I can read some of the answers for you all, for you, Dr. Evans. Uh, some of our participants says just to be informed and learn more, need to unify with other Latinx around the country, hear and adopt different perspectives. I want to learn more about how to integrate cultural knowledge practices into conversations about mental health. I want to learn more on how I can help my community. I work in a school district 99% Hispanic, and I am white Anglo, and I always look at cultural awareness. I work in behavioral health settings and wanted to learn more from other colleagues. Wanted to hear from others how they work in their communities and challenges to meet the mental health needs of their clients. My work with the Latina community, eh, para aprender y entender mejor la comunidad donde vivo y la comunidad donde trabajo. So to learn more and understand more about the community where I work and where I live. To be able to learn and talk about the topic today and hear other experiences. Networking with Latino mental health professionals, understanding and collaborating with Latino populations, to learn what services are out there to offer participants in DuPage County. I would like to learn more and enhance my skills. And we also have uh, ones from Puerto Rico wanting to learn more strategies to use here in Puerto Rico and others to improve support Latinx families and question systems we have in place to be multiculturally responsive. So thank you for those very insightful and very informative answers uh, from the group. Let me just stop the share there. Okay.
Yep. All right. Oh, thank you so much for that. And it really does indicate all of us, and many of us are from all over the country and Puerto Rico as well. And so this is such an opportunity to talk to people all over the nation just about what we feel. And soon we will have that opportunity to talk about our best practices and what we're doing. All right, Eric, do we want to do number 2?
Yes.
Let's find out who is here. Eric, do we need to give them, Christina didn't, all right. You can go, if you go into your buttons, if you've lost where the poll is, if you go under, and it might be different on your computer, but it's in the buttons, and if you click on polls, that will have it pop up for you. And it's either in like where you have mute, stop video, all those buttons, and it's under more. And if you just click polls, it should pop up. All right, we have a couple in the chat. Thank you so much, Zulma. I agree. Being able to share across, both Puerto Rico and here in the States, it is so valuable. So thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So Esther, yes, that is it. And while everyone's doing the poll, I'll talk a little bit about our chat. Yes. So Esther mentions that there is a little bit of a controversy between the word Latine and depending on where you are in the country. I have definitely been to places in the country which is like Latine is not our word. We do not use it. Other people who say Latino is not our word, or Hispanic is not our word. And so we found just in our travels and in speaking that there's definitely geographical differences. And depending on where you are, of course, however someone identifies, that's the appropriate word to use. And even among us, I'm sure if we did a poll in terms of if you are Hispanic, Latino, Latine, Latina, how do you define yourself? I'm sure even among us, we have different words to describe us. And some of us might say, I'm from Mexico, or I'm from Guatemala, or I'm from, and so all of us have different ways to identify. And so I think the most important thing is to ask the individual, how do you identify? Just recognizing there are a lot of different words, and Latine is one I found is probably, it's not as recognized in with many of the populations we serve, many of our clients. So
Thank you.
mhm.
Thank you for that insightful clarification as to the terms, which is part of being culturally aware and culturally informed, and part of, I think, the process of where we want to get through these open and honest dialogues. So I'm going to share now the results of this second poll question with everyone. And as you may be able to see, in terms of how you rated your knowledge on cultural responsive practices with Latina clients, 11% answer, 0% answered no knowledge, 11% limited knowledge, 42% moderate knowledge, another 42% knowledgeable, and 4% of you extremely knowledgeable on cultural responsive practices. So I'm going to stop the share now for those results. Oh, the, I think you should be able to see them now. So these are the percentages I just described. Sorry about that.
Perfect. Well, that's wonderful to hear that we have so many people with a lot of just wisdom regarding cultural competence. Today, we're going to add another concept to it, which is this idea of psychological safety. And so here are our discussion points today, just in terms of understanding psychological safety and the importance of it, and also learning how to foster that inside of our agencies, inside of our work, even. And at the end, we do have some great ideas. I have some ideas I'm going to share with you, and then I'm so looking forward to your feedback just as to what you have found that really works in terms of establishing psychological safety. All right. Oops, I literally just jumped to the end. Let's try again here. All right. So it looks like based on most of you have some moderate knowledge regarding culture, cultural competence, but I'll give you this definition just so we're all on the same page. Culture, as I phrase it, is the norms, values, and beliefs of any people group. And so when you think about that, that's your, what do you eat? What are the norms of the food that your family, your community eats? What are your values? What's important to you? We always talk about, la familia, the family that's so important to especially the Hispanic culture, Latino culture. El respeto, respect, and how that is so important as a value. And there's many, many others for a different training. But understanding that culture, it is the heart of a lot of the work that we do. When we think about how do we develop that rapport, it really is accepting the client's norms. This is what they do and understanding what's important to them and what they believe about themselves and others. And so culture, the way, I've been doing this for about 20 years. And when I was in school, it was kind of like you do the work. Oh yeah, don't forget about culture. That's important. And in reality, after these 20 years of looking at culture, I realized culture actually is what makes up that rapport. It's understanding someone's culture and understanding my culture and how it can impact me. And so, just a couple of notes on the difference between cultural competence and cultural humility. If you're like me and you've been doing this a little bit, we grew up with that word cultural competence, and we need that. We need to know the background of cultures, there's an attitude. Cultural competence in a negative way is actually feeling that I know everything. I'm culturally competent. I got it. I know about, the Latin population. I don't need to know anything else. I attended a couple of trainings. Knowing a culture's value is important, but also being self-aware. But its cultural competence includes like a concrete, finite set of facts. I got this. Now we know cultures are not fixed. Our cultures are always changing. Even just think about where you live and the new generation coming up, which is changing the culture, how we view technology, how we view things. There's a lot of change going on, and that's why we need cultural humility. Cultural humility includes a critical self-reflection. Who am I? Especially not just me standing by myself, but in the context of working with my client. We have ongoing learning and understanding, a curiosity. It's that humility that I don't know everything, even after I've taught, and I've trained so much on this particular population, but there is still a ton I don't know. And often attending these kind of discussions is really helpful. That's why we do these discussions, because we all know that we do not know everything and that the culture is constantly changing. And so what we need to know for our clients is constantly changing. And our goal is to have a lifetime commitment to understanding this, and with the goal of reducing that negative power relations. Most of us are in a position of power. If you're a therapist, case manager, you have an ability to tell people, hey, this is what you need to do. You have a power differential, and being able to understand someone's culture is very important. Now, most of you know all this. You've heard all this, and that culture is so important to us. It is the work. And so now I want to introduce to you this idea of psychological safety. Now, I've worked with the idea of psychological safety both in terms of an individual client, but like I mentioned, I'm the CEO of a psychiatric hospital. It's also so important for my staff. And so for those of you that are on the call, that might be supervisors, we're not just thinking about how do I create this to be a psychologically safe place for my clients to come in and share, ask for things, share their needs, and allow us to help them, but also how do I help my staff feel psychologically safe so they can bring their best work every day. And so initially, this term was developed to describe the organizational structure of teams, where there's open and honest communication that allows employees to have a sense of comfort about their ideas and identities. Now, imagine this world, for a second, just imagine your workplace. When you come in, you feel comfortable sharing your open and honest communication with others. Respectful, we're not going to come in and yell at people or I honestly don't like you or this, that, and with respect that allows both the individual to feel, hey, I can share, but also I can receive feedback. That if someone's giving me feedback, it's in the goal of helping me, where I feel comfortable. So imagine this. I know it's like a dream, isn't it? It's just crazy to even think about. However, when you think about it, that's what we're trying to do. We need to create environments where both our clients and our employees feel that they can share both their feedback of, hey, this was my experience working, receiving services here. This is why it worked. This is why it didn't work. And employees that can accept that and go, you're right. You know what? We can do better on that. But in negative cultures, if you have a negative work culture or a toxic work culture, we get away from that. And this is what is missing, that psychological safety. It's more, we got physical safety. Do we have the right chairs? Is the physical plant in good order? It's easy to do, physical safety. But psychological safety, where in a team meeting, I can share if I don't agree with something and know that I'll be heard. Now, maybe the team will go my way. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll go, you know what? You're the only one that feels this way. Thanks for sharing. But the team, we're going to go in the opposite direction. But where I can share. And embedded in this is that understanding of culture. Remember, culture is the, norms, beliefs, and values. And when I feel that how I do things, what I believe and what I value is accepted by those around me, I feel psychologically safe. And so this is the measurement that we've been looking for, I don't know about you, this is the way I phrase it, through the entire thing. And here's why. Psychological safety is built on several key components: trust, respect, open communication, supportive feedback, a learning culture, inclusion safety, learner safety, and challenger safety. There's one I want to point out here. Your environment is only as safe as the most challenging person, that allows the most challenging person to express what they feel. So think about it. Last meeting you attended, or even the last home visit you attended. Can the challenger, the people that says, I don't agree, can they safely challenge what's being said or done? If people that challenge the status quo do not feel safe, it is not a safe environment, because basically that is a place that, as long as you go along with the status quo, as long as you go around along with everybody, as long as you're in the know, part of the group, then you're safe. But if you disagree, or if you see something's not going right, or if as a client you express, I had a bad experience here, this wasn't okay. Oh, I'm sorry, you're difficult. That's not psychologically safe. And so we're working to create environments where people can challenge when things aren't going well in a safe environment. And additionally, that, going back one, where they can learn, where they can ask the dumb question, the question that everyone's, that maybe they're like, I'm not sure I should ask. I know it was probably been talked about. I don't understand still. And so learner safety is when everybody can say, I don't understand yet, I need additional help. And then that inclusion safety, are we in an environment where we can include everyone, where if there is somebody that's difficult, not going along with the status quo, not compliant, oh, I hate that word, is it okay for us to go, you know what, this person doesn't necessarily agree with all of us, but they're still on our team, they're still included? And those are the types of environments that create this psychological safety. Because think about it, often our values drive us to say, I don't agree. My value says this isn't okay. And if you're in an environment that doesn't allow for that, then it's not culturally competent or culturally humble as well. you know. And so this is really what we're working on. And thank you for those of you in the chat. I'm taking a side peek, as you're going through. And yes, so there's a lot of great things that are being said in the chat if you're not taking a look at that. And so I really appreciate that, because yes, it's all about personal growth. Think about this. If I'm an individual and I struggle with accepting feedback that doesn't agree with what I thought we should do, I'm not creating a psychologically safe environment. If I'm like, hey, I don't agree, or, I don't like what you said, please be quiet, sit down. I'm not going to invite you to our next meeting because you're disagreeable. The environment that actually impacts the entirety of what we're doing, So, excuse me. So a couple of things that we need, and we're all leaders. So let me put that. We are all leaders in our position. Here's some of the traits that you need to create an environment that's psychologically safe. Authenticity, being real, emotional intelligence, having a self-awareness, self-assurance, being confident of yourself, personal inquiry, being able to question, what do I know about what I know? And that flexibility. All right, people don't agree with me. I can flex and work to understand what they think and accept theirs. And yes, I thank you. And there are many, many unsafe environments, and certainly, and that's why we work on this. Every single person as a leader in your position, whether you're a manager or whether, you just started 10 minutes ago, all of us are leaders in our position, and we do influence, every single one of us influences the psychological safety of our environment. So here are some of our action steps. Here's what I recommend. So first of all, oops, sorry. There we go. So looking at this, here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 things that you can do. So the first one, adapt communication approaches when needed. Even today, thinking about how we're communicating, it is a responsibility of the speaker, of the communicator, to make sure they can be understood. Interpreters are not about, well, this person needs an interpreter. If everyone in the room cannot understand me, I need an interpreter, and I also need to change how I speak to make sure everybody can understand what I am saying, because I'm the one communicating. So adapting those communication and letting your team know, or the people you work with know, yeah, sometimes I need to speak softer, louder, slower, faster, or use different words. Next one, recognizing the different experiences with power, privilege, and oppression. I work with many people that sometimes they like, hey, what did management say? That's what we're going to do. No problem. I like, not my decision. I'll just do what the boss says. Other people are like, no, I need to feel okay with what has been said, with what management's told me. Same thing with our clients. Many of our clients have lived years being told what to do. And it's harmful, as opposed to when they have a new worker who says, I'd like to do this with you, and how that can change this. And that's culturally humble as well. Examine where you personally hold power and privilege in your life. I have a lot of privilege in my life, um, and it is so important that when I'm working with others, I've so often made mistakes of, hey, why didn't you do this? And it's like, that's my privilege speaking. It's an easy answer until I look and go, no, not everyone has the privileges I do. Recognizing and disrupt your own implicit and explicit biases. What did you grow up believing was true? Now, for those of you that have been in many culturally competent, culturally humble trainings, these are sounding awfully familiar, aren't they? Own your individual responsibility. Like I said a minute ago, when it comes to psychological safety and cultural humility, it's my job and all of your jobs. No one else is going to do that. And we can say management should, or supervisors should, or clients should, but at the end of the day, I have the responsibility for my behavior, my thoughts, and everything that comes from me. Build a tolerance for discomfort. One thing I've been saying lately, that in just about 99% of problems you're going to find, the worst thing that can happen is you will be uncomfortable. Imagine your worst nightmare, of you ever, I don't know if you guys have had this, where, like you have a nightmare, but all of a sudden you go to, you wake up and you're in your high school class and there's a test and you're unprepared, or, you have to speak in front of everyone and you didn't create anything. Guess what? The worst thing that happens there, you're uncomfortable. That's about it, you know. And so being okay with being uncomfortable, because that's literally the worst thing that can happen in about 99% of the situations that you worry about. Is you're going to show up to work, not know what to do, ask a dumb question, and the worst thing that can happen is you feel uncomfortable, which is actually an internal experience, reacting to your own expectations of what I should be doing. And so be okay with being uncomfortable, and you'll find your life completely changes in terms of what you can achieve, because you're not afraid of being uncomfortable anymore. Majority of things you have on your list of things to do that you're like, someday I will, or I really should, just about all your shoulds aren't being done because you're afraid of being uncomfortable. Model accountability and courage. You know, people in our lives need that. How do you be accountable? You know, what is courage? What does it look like in your job? And foster creativity and innovation, because creativity and innovation, when we encourage that in the workplace, because we accept when people think are challengers, we accept people that are learning, we accept people that, you know, are including others and need to be included. And that is where we get the greatest impact, and we see big change, you know, in terms of what we need our workplaces to look like. All right, so building it. So a couple of things I recommend, you know, and this, for those of you in the schools, this is Bloomberg's hierarchy of learning. And when we look, teaching people, you know, first thing we talk about as we're looking at changing environments, help people understand just the facts and basic concepts. And then as we work to change the environment, sometimes we have to talk about it. This is what we're doing today. What is psychological safety? We work to explain it. Right now, if you haven't heard it before, you're working to understand. Then we apply, which we're going to do in a little bit. And then as you go through your week, what I'm hoping is that you're going to start analyzing, looking for connections about how culture and psychological safety work together. Start to evaluate how you can use it, how you can use it in your environment, and then be able to expand upon it. And so that's really, as you evaluate just your own working environment and your clients, that's really what we're looking for to kind of increase this. So, all right. So I see that I have a hand. Julie. There we go. I think I just allowed you to talk. I think.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I pressed that by accident. But hi, everybody. Thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
All right. Thanks. So, all right. And so, Eric, I think we have poll number 3, so we can kind of see where everybody is on this.
Yes, we'll pull up the poll number 3 now, and afterwards, just letting everyone know if they would like to join the dialogue after sharing the poll and share their questions, and they may do so. If they're having any issues, we'll help out technically here. So let me put up the poll now, so everyone can see the next question. Okay.
And as the poll is coming up, you know, start thinking about just questions you have or things you want to share, and we'll talk more.
So this question reads, how challenging do you find it to establish dialogues around culture and identity with Latinx clients? Your opinion, everyone, to answer that. Okay, I'll give everyone another, say, half a minute, 30 seconds, and we'll share the answers to that poll. Okay, so here are the results for the poll. So we have 10 of our participants, or 26% of the group today, finds it not challenging at all. 46% or 18 of youth answered slightly challenging. 26% of the group, 10 of you, moderately challenging. And one of our participants found it challenging to establish dialogues around culture and identity with Latinx clients.
Fantastic. So I'd like to ask, you know, looking at this, as we start to think about, you know, creating psychological safety is such, you know, it is so important to recognize someone's identity. So for those of you that thought it was not challenging at all or just slightly challenging, Do you have any experiences that you'd like to share as to how you use just the understanding of your client's identity to help them feel psychologically safe in your interactions? And you have some thoughts on that?
Oh, and just to let everyone, I see a hand raised here. Please.
Perfect. I got it.
Hi, this is Cristina Castillo.
Mhm.
For me, I answered that it was not challenging at all because I've always had this sense of, especially when I used to work with students, Hispanic, Latino students, it was mostly no shame, no shame, no blame, and no assumptions. That was my stance. And as a counselor, my first and foremost responsibility was to the students, and my first ethical responsibility is first do no harm.
Mhm.
So I always, and that, but I also think that it's my personality. I mean, I just like people in general, and especially Latinos, and I live in a rural area, and you don't see a lot of Latinos, and the majority that we see are either college students from the Chicago area or migrant farm workers. And so we see the distinction of the majority coming from mixed status families or immigrants, undocumented populations, and considering all the struggles that they go through and everything that they navigate, the intricacies of racism and prejudice in the area, it would be like terrible of me if I don't establish a sense of being safe around me. And so that's always like, I feel like you mentioned that you have a lot of privileges, the same for me. And because I am a Latina, I still go through struggles. So I cannot even imagine the struggles that they go through. So that's why it's an intention that I always feel and intentionally work on being a safe space for these populations and for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing this. I see so much just good. And it's, as a counselor, or someone who's working with clients, there's that element, that characteristic of potency, of just having your own self-assurance that I think is so important. Karen, I think your hand was up next.
Sure. So I put that it wasn't, that it was somewhat a challenge. I would say that because I mean, like first generation immigrant myself, I have been able to understand when it comes to psychological views, right? And then I think it is not challenging in the way if you create a safe space, and also if you can open up and find the client where they at and be respectful for where their beliefs are. So, but that doesn't mean that everyone will actually be able to understand when it comes to counseling or psychological or views of their need of mental health. I do believe that I'm in Boston, and so it is a little bit difficult to find Spanish-speaking mental health providers. However, there are a big community of community health workers who are sometimes working with clients and find them where they are and find barriers. But I do believe it is important for us to create rapport and also respect our clients' beliefs and backgrounds, and not find ourselves to whatever we learn is what we need to put in place, and also being open to learn from our own clients on what would be the best way to help. And I think when we have gone through our own struggles and our own view of what mental health or psychological safety is, it's also a plus when to put in place for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at, Michelle has a post in the chat about sharing basically what is a good way to accept negative feedback. So one of the things I talked about with psychological safety is that challenger safety, that sometimes you have to create an environment for people that also disagree with you or give you negative feedback. Does anyone have any ideas as to what they might do in that case? Yeah, and you can take a look at the chat, Michelle's chat there. Anyone have any thoughts? Awesome, we got a couple. So, Diashore, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I prefer to consider negative feedback as constructive feedback. Really being open to the process of what someone is saying to me and putting on my critical analysis skills so that I can do some psychological separation. That it's not me, the person. It may be, reference to that I don't take it personally, that I see it as an insult. The bottom line is that it's an opportunity to grow. Even if I don't agree with it, it's still a learning opportunity for me to understand that there are different perspectives and I need to find ways to be inclusive so that I'm not repeating that same mishap, let's say, with that individual. And I take it in mind when I'm working with others that I'm presenting whatever it may be as an option versus seeing that it's an indication on my character.
Yeah, definitely. I think I look very closely. If I get negative feedback, usually somewhere in there is someone has a belief. I don't believe this is good. I don't believe you're right. And that does need to be honored and heard. Now, sometimes I don't like that. Usually where we get stuck in terms of negative feedback is how the person's saying it. Someone might be yelling or saying it in a negative way or kind of saying it in an insulting, disrespectful way. And that's always hard to take the tone and the manner it was said. But often within there, there's you know what? Yeah, you're right. There's something I could improve there. I could have said it better. So often my direct response is either thank you for your feedback. I'll give that some thought. Because usually that's what the communicator wants. They just want you to, just consider what I said, consider I didn't have a good experience with you. And, and so, but yeah, sometimes it's hard not everyone knows how to deliver constructive criticism or feedback, So, yes, Michelle, I saw your hand go up and then I saw it go back down. Sorry about that. Where are you? There you go. You should be able to talk now.
First of all, I would like to thank you and your organization for having this space. And forgive me if I sound a bit emotional. It's because I am processing the experience that I had recently, as I mentioned. It was really unnerving for me because the presenter was a white male and was doing a real live play demonstration and asked at the end for feedback. And I didn't, I asked, if...
Hi, Mr. Norman. My name is Julie Valencia. I work for Boston Public Schools as part of the student
I think we got someone that
team
cut
over the
in.
summer. And my name is Julie. I was just calling to...
There we go. Sorry about that, Michelle.
Yeah, no problem. And the role play that was being demonstrated with one of my fellow attendees, essentially I was asking the person if this is how you wanted us to do the process, because I didn't see the collaborative element. And the presenter became visibly incensed with my feedback. and said, that was not their intention. And I responded, it's not about the intention, it's the impact. And that just changed the energy of the ongoing following days that we had the remaining sessions, and so hence the reason I asked about in terms of receiving feedback that might not necessarily be interpreted as positive. What is the best way? Because that idea of telling me that it wasn't his intention was very dismissive for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and I think it's a great learning experience in terms of sometimes we learn very clearly how not to do something by watching someone else who does something that ended up being hurtful. And so I know I had, let's see, Christina Pachano. I know your hand's been up. Let me jump over there. Go ahead, Christina.
Yes. Perfect. So I think for me, I was hearing the person that was talking before, and I had a couple of instances, or maybe more than a couple, well, people do give me constructive or negative feedback, right, about something in the therapeutic, area. So I think what had helped me, because I come from a background, talk about self-awareness, right, where the authority is the one that has the last word, is to ask questions, right? For me, that has become sort of like the neuroscience of safety kind of inspire on that. Like, okay, so this idea of I'm genuinely curious about what happened that I messed up, and that total acknowledge that, yeah, oh my god, that this is a validation for the other person, that just a client that you didn't give the something about the medication for her child, her very young teen child. She wanted this medication, this foster mother, and we were exploring other options, and she was so also upset about that I was not considering just right away. So this idea of just asking the questions to the persons that I missed that, and recognizing, OMG, I'm so sorry, I missed this part. Which also for clients, I'm thinking feedback from clients, and actually it does. I feel it just helps people be more at ease versus, and it helps me as a therapist or as a group facilitator to be less defensive. I'm just gonna say that, like, really genuine curiosity about what happened, what would you have expected, instead of that sort of, that would be my frame.
Yeah, and I think expectations, that idea of what are your expectations, is so important, and thinking about what do our clients expect regarding safety and regarding acceptance, because that sets the framework. And I just pulled up this slide again, just in terms of the to-dos, as you think about that. Christina Castillo, your hand's been up a little bit. Do you have something for us?
I already spoke, but I thought I lowered my hand.
Yep, sorry about that. All right. Eric, do we have our last poll? We have one more question.
We do. I'll go ahead and pull that up for everyone, and let everyone know that before we end today, I've shared a link to our evaluation. Your feedback is important to us. So let me go ahead and pull up that poll for you.
So while Eric's pulling up the poll, I just pulled up the evaluation, but we'll have our last couple of minutes here of just actionable things. So our poll is based on what can you do? And so I'd love to hear your ideas in this poll, and then we'll share those out. So.
The question for the poll reads: how have you adapted your approaches and therapeutic space to be more culturally sensitive? And thinking about that, how has it benefited the work with your clients or participants?
So we have about 2 minutes for this one, then we'll have Eric share a couple of those ideas so that you can adapt your approaches. I think we really could talk about this another hour, but as Eric knows, that's typical for my presentations. I usually need at least one more hour.
Well, we know now. This part of we'll have you fill out the evaluation too, so you can let us know.
This was just a taste of this.
So I know this is a question that has a lot of dimensions to its answer. So I'll give everyone another 30 seconds, and then I'll start reading out the questions, and we can take it from there. So thank you everyone for your support and patience.
All right, I think we're ready, Eric.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and share some of those answers that we have. So in terms of how they have adapted their approaches, the Latino clients to be more culturally sensitive and how it benefit clients, and learn how to hear and possible repetitions of things that the person may have not said, having information in multiple languages, stories from different countries, using my own cultural background to open conversations about theirs, taking the time to understand their culture, whether it's family culture or based on how they identify. As a manager, I make sure to lead with vulnerability, starting conversations with I do not know everything, and also role modeling that I can disagree with myself at any point. I try to speak the language of my client, Spanish, to be more culturally sensitive. I also discuss the impact of migration to let them know it's very hard. Be aware the client is, be curious, and want to know more about the culture and how acculturation has impacted their lives and mental health. And we have so much great answers here. Gathering and under culture and idioms from different Latin countries, my experience with traveling and visiting many countries has expanded that sensitivity. Truly listening to what is said and not said. Some clients may say and truly reflect as to where the client is in terms of receptivity and to a certain idea or paradigm. As a counselor, the relationship is most important. Trust, reliability, advocacy, and teaching self advocacy are some of the important aspects of my practice and empowerment of clients to self advocate. Um, so thank you so much for collaborating to this dialogue with those amazing answers and your experiences in terms of shaping um, cultural safety.
Yes, and thank you everybody for attending. That's it for today. And so hopefully we'll see you again in another dialogue soon. So thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, for your contributions to the discussion, and we hope to see you again soon. This is we do this every 2 months, so our next session should be in 2 months. So stay tuned to our social media web pages for that next Entre Colegas dialogue session. And thank you, Dr. Evans, and our fantastic translation services and interpreters. Thank you.